Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And I wanted to make a card tonight with a little different twist. Typically when you make a card, you either use a piece of designer series paper, the printed paper, or stamped cardstock for the background of your card. And you're not solely tied to those two options. For this card, I used repetitive punches that I inked the corners up, or the edges up, and that's how I made the background of my card. So I wanted to show you how quick and easy it is to make a different kind of card background. And you can do it without a lot of supplies. You will need a piece of a piece of cardstock that is 8.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall, scored on the long side at 4 1/4. You will need an envelope, a piece of white for your insert that is 5 1/4 by 4, a piece of designer series paper that is 2.5 inches tall by 4 1/4 inches wide, and a punch, some cardstock that matches your card base color, and a rectangle that's approximately 3 by 4 if you don't have scallop dies or rectangle dies. So if you need to pause the video while you go grab your supplies, but then come on back and craft with me. So to start my card, I'm going to fold my card base in half. This is Cinnamon Cider, one of our in colors. And so to create the card base, I am going to use those repetitive punches. I have the tailored tag punch that I'm using for this card, and putting it together is almost like putting together a puzzle. I punched about 7 or so of these tailored tag punches, and then I inked up the edges with a sponge. So I'm going to show you how to do that in case you're not familiar, but I'm not going to do it on all of them. I have my Cinnamon Cider ink and a finger dauber. So you can use a small sponge or a fingertip dauber like this. And so I'm simply going to tap it in the ink and then brush it along the edges of my card stock, my tag. And if you haven't done this before, it's very simple. It'll take you just a minute, really 10 seconds or less, to get the feel for the angle you want to use and how much ink you need to edge your punches. But this is a very quick and easy technique. It's fun to do for tags. Just gives your tags a little accent. So there we go. You can see how I've just darkened the edges of the tags. Quick and simple. So now I'm going to assemble the front of the card, and it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. To start, I'm going to go ahead and put adhesive on the back of a couple of these, and my adhesive is notoriously camera shy. These are backed with the Stampin' Seal Plus. It is one of the adhesives that Stampin' Up! Has. This is great for 3D projects as well as card, and it's my favorite adhesive to use. So what I'm going to do before I glue down my designer series paper, I'm going to hold it in place. It's going to be lined up with the bottom corner of the card. But I'm just going to hold it in place and take my shapes and start building my puzzle, so to speak. So I'm going to offset it a little bit and then slip it down behind my paper. And then once I have the first one in place, I can move my designer series paper out of the way and then start building. And so what I'm going to do is bring over my silicone mat. If you have one of these, this is great, because if you've got adhesive on the edges of your paper, you might not want to stick it to your work surface. So I'm just going to continue to build my pattern using these shapes and my persnickety adhesive. I promise you, they really do work. Mine's just camera shy. When I'm not on camera, it works just fine. So I'm going to leave a little space in between. And then for these next two pieces, I'm only going to ink up or put adhesive on the back of half of it, since I obviously don't need to put adhesive on the whole thing. But this is why I didn't want to stick it to my work surface. And I'm just going to continue building until my whole card is filled. So just a couple more. Now, this will obviously vary depending on which punch you use. Hearts would obviously be a little different to put together. You might want to invert some of the rows of hearts. You can also use die cut shapes. I'll show you that in a few samples when I'm finished here. So you definitely have options, and you don't have to make a solid backdrop the way I am. You could use just a few punches for accent, and I'll show you that too. So as I said, I'm just continuing to fill in. Now, I obviously have a few spaces here at the top. I could leave it just like that, but I do want to fill them in. So I actually have a scrap from a card I made earlier. So I'm going to use that to fill in this wider space here at the top. And I would recommend just giving an extra little press to anything up here near the edges. And then I do want to fill in these little corners. So I have another chunk of tag that I'm just going to fill in here. And then what I can do is I'm going to flip it over and take my scissors, and I'm just going to trim off the excess. Be careful when you're trimming on the edge where your fold is. That's the one place I always worry that I'm going to cut a little too close and cut a hole in my actual card. So be careful there. I'm going to open it up so I can get a slightly better view of what I'm doing, but a quick trim along the edges is all I need to do. And then I'll have an extra chunk left over that I can finish that little tiny corner with. So toss my scraps away. And like I said, that one little corner. Give that a good press, and then just quickly trim that, and then my card front, as far as the punches go, will be complete. So now I just have to finish with the Designer Series paper and my stamped image. Before I put my silicone mat away, I'm going to use it. I have my strip of Designer Series paper, and I'm going to put a piece of ribbon, which has wandered off my craft table, and that's okay, always when you're live on video. So I have a piece of matching cinnamon cider ribbon, and what I'm going to do is just run a strip of adhesive here across the top to hold my ribbon in place. And that's why I have my silicone mat there. And then if you have any extra adhesive, you can kind of fold it back. Mine is being very non-cooperative at the moment. There we go. And then I'm going to run adhesive along the edges, partially to help stick my ribbon down when I fold this little tab of ribbon behind. And then also to help the card, or help the Designer Series paper stick to the card front. So now I'm just going to line my Designer Series paper up with the edges of my card. If you have a little adhesive showing, if you have an adhesive eraser, you can use that, or even a pencil eraser will help you remove that adhesive from the front of the card. And I'm not too worried about part of it because it will be hidden by the stamped image I'm going to use. So the stamp set I am using this evening is called Back on Your Feet. This is a beautiful stamp set. The images in this are great. We have the little sloth, the giraffe, and the turtle. And this would be great for a Thinking of You card as well as a Get Well card. So I took one of the scalloped rectangles from the Stitched So Sweetly die set, and stamped in Memento ink for my giraffe and this sentiment, which is "This is not good," little play on words with the knot on the giraffe's neck. And I wanted to color the card, so I stamped in Memento so that I could use my Stampin' Blends. And just a quick rundown of colors: I used bronze for the spots on the giraffe. I used light smoky slate for the little hooves on the giraffe's feet. For the giraffe itself, I used dark mango melody for the little darker areas kind of around it. And one of the things I love the most about Stampin' Up! Is they kind of give you a guideline for where you need to do your shading. So that was perfect. And then I went over the whole giraffe with dark Daffodil Delight. And then for a little accent, I put a little blue light pool party down by the giraffe's feet. So hopefully you can see that. But I figure you don't want to be bored watching me color. So through the magic of video, I have one that's already made and colored. So I'm just going to flip it over and put some dimensionals on the back. One thing I recommend with larger panels is that you freely use your dimensionals. For smaller shapes, I only use one on each corner, but because this is larger, I don't want it to sag in the middle when I put the card together. So I put a few more just to kind of prop up that center piece, that center area. So now I'm just going to flip that back over and position it on my card. You can obviously position wherever you like with whatever shape you chose. And then I tied a bow with the cinnamon cider ribbon that I used to line the front of that designer series paper. So I'm going to take a glue dot, pop it right on the back of the center of the bow, and then I'm actually going to hide this little bit of adhesive that wants to hang out there with my bow. So a little press down, and then I just need to trim my little ribbon tails with my scissors. And so there's the front of the card. So I quickly need to stamp the inside. For an accent, I took a 1/2 inch strip of designer series paper and I'm going to glue it here at the top. But before I do that, I'm going to stamp my sentiment for the inside, which is "Hope things get better soon." I'm going to use the Memento to tie everything together. And so, since I got a good image, I'm going to go ahead and glue that strip down. I usually wait until I'm done with my stamping before I add any accents in case I make a mistake, because that way I can just flip the cardstock over and continue on the other side. There's 2 sides to every piece of Whisper White or Very Vanilla cardstock, which comes in handy sometimes. So there's my little accent piece. I'm going to use a little more adhesive just to tack down my insert. And there is my completed card. And I'm going to go back and stamp my envelope with the matching giraffe, because I don't believe in bare envelopes. I like a little something on my envelopes. So there you have just a fun background technique for something different for your card. I do have some more samples to show you. I used the sloth in the set and of course stamped my little envelope. This card I made with Granny Apple Green, and instead of using a punch and the inked edges, I simply used die cuts. These are from the new Pierced Blooms die set that we have in our new January to June catalog. And if you don't have a consultant that you're working with and would like to see a catalog, please shoot me a message or send me a comment. You can visit me on Facebook as The Faithful Stamper, and I'd be happy to send you a catalog. And you can visit my website and do any shopping that you might need to. And so here's the inside, and I simply accented with a few more die cuts. And you don't have to have an all-over design such as the giraffe card or the sloth card. You could just use a few punches to accent. So here's the turtle from the set. It says, "Hope you're back on your feet soon." And I simply used the rectangle punch, the rectangle postage punch that we have, and punched out 3 of them. Hopefully you can see that on camera. And I put one behind the turtle here, another on this end, and then this one in the middle kind of straddles where I wanted to put the strip of designer series paper, a little coordinating ribbon, and my turtle image and I was ready to go. And then again, the strip of Designer Series paper to accent the inside. And you can use this on Christmas cards as well. I try to do one Christmas card a week. Helps me get a jump on the holidays. And so for this one, I actually stamped and then punched out the trees. This is using our Perfectly Plaid set from our annual catalog. And then this one I popped on dimensionals. So you can see you have lots of options when you're putting together this kind of card. It can be as involved or as simple as you like. So thank you so much for joining me for this quick and easy video. I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to have you as a subscriber on my YouTube channel and that you'll come back and visit me for more crafting videos. Take care and happy crafting.